If your GPU is completely dead, no display, maybe no fans, maybe the PC doesn't even start, it's very tempting to jump straight into crazy repairs, reballing, replacing cores, swapping memory, but that's not how I work. I repair GPUs for a living, and before I even think about hot air or reballing, there are five basic checks I always do first. In this video, I'll walk you through those five steps, explain exactly what I look for and why. Welcome to GPU Solutions. My name is Fraser and I specialize in repairing and upgrading graphic cards. In this video, I'm going to focus not on a single repair from start to finish. Instead, I'll walk you through the core workflow I follow whenever a dead GPU lands on my desk. Whether you're just starting with GPU repairs or you're a hobbyist trying to revive your own card, these five checks will save you a lot of time and can prevent further damage. Let's start right at the beginning with the cooler still on the card. The first thing I do before I even remove the cooler is check the basic health of the power inputs. With the card completely assembled, I use the multimeter in resistance mode and measure between ground and 12 volts 8 pin or 12 volts high power connector, the 12 volts on the PCIe and the 3.3 volts on the PCIe connector. No power is applied at this point. This is just a static resistance check. What I'm looking for? A hard short to ground on 12 volts from the 8 pin or PCIe, abnormally low resistance on 3.3 volts, and any reading that tells me if I plug into the PC something is going to complain. This takes only a few seconds, but it tells me immediately whether the card is even safe to power or if I'm dealing with a serious short on the main input rails. So before I touch a single screw, I already know if the 12 volt path is likely okay or if 3.3 volt is obviously shorted. If those look reasonable, then I move on to the disassembly. Once the basic input check is done, I disassemble the GPU. I remove the cooler and shroud, take off the backplate, remove thermal pads where needed, and clean the old thermal paste so the PCB is fully exposed. With the bare PCB on the bench, I move straight to the microscope inspection. Under the microscope, I'm looking for missing or knocked off components, especially small resistors and other passives around the core, memory, and VRM. I look for burn marks or discoloration around MOSFETs, inductors, and the PCIe power area. I look for corrosion or liquid damage around the memory chips, connectors, and mounting holes. And I look for scratches or gouges in the PCB where someone slipped in a screwdriver or tool while repasting or installing a water block. A lot of mysterious faults are just physical damage. A tiny resistor missing, a cracked inductor, solder bridges, or previous repair attempts gone wrong. Missing capacitors are often just filters, and the card may still boot without them, but a missing resistor in the wrong place can completely break a circuit. So the second check is simple. Fully disassemble the card, then carefully inspect it under the microscope. Only after I've mapped out any obvious physical damage do I move to the deeper electrical checks. Next, I measure resistance to ground on the main secondary rails directly at the inductors. Here, I use resistance mode only. I don't use diode mode on these rails because it can be very misleading, especially on things like Samsung memory, where a perfectly normal resistance in tens of ohms can look like a short if you only look at a tiny diode reading. With the card unpowered, I go around the board and check the memory rail inductors and the auxiliary rails, things like 1.8 volts, PEX, 5 volts, and other small logic rails depending on the design. You'll notice I'm not trying to measure the GPU core rail in resistance mode. On modern GPUs, core resistance is extremely low, often around zero point 0.2 ohms. A normal multimeter is inaccurate there. You'll really need a milliohm meter. On a standard meter, it will just look like a short. it doesn't give you any useful information. So I focus on the rails where resistance mode actually tells me something meaningful. Measuring at inductors gives a good snapshot at each usable rail. A hard shot will show up as very low resistance, close to 0 ohms. Memory rails should have a sensible resistance, not 0, but not in mega ohms either. If a smaller logic rail measures extremely low, that points to a specific regulator or downstream IC. This builds a map of which rails are healthy and which ones are suspects, excluding the GPU core resistance because that needs different tools. So now I have a clearer picture. Maybe the 12 volts look fine, memory looks fine, but the 1.8 volt or 5 volt may be shorted. Or maybe the memory rail is clearly bad while the logic rail looks normal. Only once I understand the resistance profile on these rails do I let the card see any power at all, and even then, I don't go straight to a PC. After confirming there are no obvious catastrophic shorts on the input, memory, or auxiliary rails, I connect the card to my custom bench power supply, not directly to a computer. This setup allows me to limit the current so GPU doesn't burn up if something is still wrong. By default, I set the current limit to around 3 amps. I can increase it later if needed, but 3 amps is usually more than enough to check that the card powers up and to measure voltages safely. With the bench power supply connected, I power on the card with the current limit set and I watch how much current the card draws and whether it hits the current limit. Then I measure all the voltage rails under power: core voltage, memory voltage, 1.8 volts, PEX, 5 volts, and other logic rails. This is where I check the GPU core rails properly, not by resistance, but by making sure the core voltage actually appears and behaves correctly under power. What I'm looking for now is simple. Do the rails come up correctly? Do any rails start and then collapse after a movement? Or the card is pulling reasonable amount of current, or does it instantly try to pull too much? Because the current is limited to 3 amps, if there's a problem, I'll see it in the current draw before something gets dangerously hot. This control power up step is critical. It shows me how the card behaves electrically under safe conditions and which rails are alive, missing, or unstable, including the GPU core rail. The fifth check is a combination of thermal camera check and oscilloscope check on the VRMs done after I verify the voltage with the bench power supply. These are things you often don't see on camera, but they're always running in the background of my diagnosis. With the card power from the bench supply and the current still limited, I start with the thermal camera. I look at the GPU core, all the memory chips, the VRM area including the MOSFETs, inductors, and controllers, and any suspicious zones I noticed earlier under the microscope. I'm watching for a GPU core that stays completely cold even though the core voltage is present, or only a part of the GPU core that overheats. I'm watching for memory chips that become very hot very quickly compared to the others. And I'm watching for any power IC or tiny components that show any abnormal hotspot. In parallel with that, I also use the oscilloscope on VRM to see how clean and stable the power rails are. On the oscilloscope, I'm checking whether the VRM is actually switching properly. If the waveform looks roughly as expected for the switching regulator, and if there's any obvious excessive ripples, noise, or instability on a rail that might not be obvious from a simple DC voltage reading. Sometimes a rail will measure correctly with a multimeter, but the waveform is a mess, noisy, collapsing under load, or not switching cleanly. The scope helps catch those issues. So in this fifth step, I'm asking two things. From the thermal camera, what is heating up? What is staying cold? And is there anything suspiciously hot or uneven across the core? from the oscilloscope, are the VRM rails actually clean and stable, or is there any hidden problem in the switching? This is still an early diagnostic stage, but it gives me a clear sense of whether I'm dealing with a dead or lazy core, a bad VRM chip, a faulty VRM stage or controller, or something deeper that needs more advanced work. Only after I'm satisfied with these five basic checks do I move to heavy work like reballing, core swap, paired repair, or deeper signal level troubleshooting. So, to summarize, these are five checks I always do on any dead or suspicious GPU. Number one, resistance at the power inputs with the cooler on. 12 volts, 3.3 volts, to make sure the card isn't obviously shorted before you even open it. Number two, disassembly and microscope inspection, looking for missing parts, burns, corrosions, and mechanical damage. Number three, resistance on memory and auxiliary rails at the inductors using resistance mode only and not relying on GPU core resistance because it's down to milliohm range. Number four, controlled power up with current limited bench power supply, usually at around 3 amps, checking core, memory, and logic voltages under safe conditions. And number five, thermal camera and oscilloscope check using temperature and VRM waveforms to spot bed chips, hotspot, uneven heating, and unstable power rails. Everything more advanced, reballing, core swaps, paired repair, and deep diagnostics comes after these basic steps. If you have a faulty GPU, you can book your repair through my website. The link is in the video description. If you found this helpful, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video to anyone who's trying to get into GPU repair. It really helps support the work I do here. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, you can also become a channel member. Your support helps me keep the workshop running and more in-depth GPU repair content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next repair. Bye for now. Cheers.